The Odyssey by Homer.
Book 7. Reception of Ulysses by Alcinous. Return of Nausicaa to the city, followed by Ulysses. Palace and garden of Alcinous. Reception of Ulysses by the queen and her husband. Narrative given by Ulysses of his voyage and shipwreck.
So prayed Ulysses, the great sufferer. The strong mules bore the damsel toward the town. And when she reached her father's stately halls, she stopped beneath the porch. Her brothers came around her, like in aspect to the gods, and loosed the mules and bore the garments in. She sought her chamber, where an aged dame, attendant there, an epirote, and named Eurymedusa, lighted her a fire. She by the well-oared galleys had been brought beforetime from Epirus, and was given to King Alcinous, ruler over all Phaeacia's sons, who hearkened to his voice as if he were a god. 'Twas she who reared white-armed Nausicaa in the royal halls, tended her hearth, and dressed her evening meal. Now rose Ulysses up, and townward turned his steps, while friendly Pallas wrapped his way in darkness, lest someone among the sons of the Phaeacians with unmannerly words might call to him or ask him who he was. And just as he was entering that fair town, the blue-eyed Pallas met him in the form of a young virgin with an urn. She stood before him, and Ulysses thus inquired, "Wilt thou, my daughter, guide me to the house where dwells Alcinous, he who rules this land? I am a stranger who have come from far after long hardships, and of all who dwell within this realm I know not even one." Pallas, the blue-eyed goddess, thus replied, "Father and stranger, I will show the house. The dwelling of my own good father stands close by it. Follow silently, I pray, and I will lead. Look not on any man, nor ask a question, for the people here affect not strangers, nor do oft receive with kindly welcome him who comes from far. They trust in their swift barks, which to and fro by Neptune's favor cross the mighty deep. Their galleys have the speed of wings or thought." Thus Pallas spake, and quickly led the way. He followed in her steps. They saw him not, those trained Phaeacian seamen, for the power that led him, Pallas of the amber hair, forbade the sight, and threw a friendly veil of darkness over him. Ulysses saw, wondering, the haven and the gallant ships, the marketplace where heroes thronged, the walls long, lofty, and beset with palisades, a marvel to the sight. But when they came to the king's stately palace, thus began the blue-eyed goddess speaking to the chief. "Father and stranger, here thou seest the house which thou hast bid me show thee. Thou wilt find the princes, nurslings of the gods, within, royally feasting. Enter, and fear not. The bold man ever is the better man, although he come from far. Thou first of all wilt see the queen. Arete is the name the people give her. She is of a stock the very same from which Alcinous, the king, derives his lineage. For long since, Nausithous, its founder, was brought forth to Neptune, the great shaker of the shores, by Peribea, fairest of her sex, and youngest daughter of Eurymedon, the large of soul, who ruled the arrogant brood of giants, and beheld that guilty race cut off and perished by a fate like theirs. Her Neptune wooed, she bore to him a son, large-souled Nausithous, whom Phaeacia owned its sovereign. To Nausithous were born Rhexenor and Alcinous. He who bears the silver bow, Apollo, smote to death Rhexenor, newly wedded, in his home. He left no son, and but one daughter named Arete. Her Alcinous made his wife, and honored her as nowhere else on earth is any woman honored who bears charge over a husband's household. From their hearts her children pay her reverence, and the king, and all the people, for they look on her as if she were a goddess. When she goes abroad into the streets, all welcome her with acclamations. Never does she fail in wise discernment, but decides disputes kindly and justly between man and man. And if thou gain her favor, there is hope that thou mayst see thy friends once more, and stand in thy tall palace on thy native soil. The blue-eyed Pallas, having spoken thus, departed o'er the barren deep. She left the pleasant isle of Scheria, and repaired to Marathon, and to the spacious streets of Athens, entering there the massive halls where dwelt Erechtheus, while Ulysses toward the gorgeous palace of Alcinous turned his steps, yet stopped and pondered ere he crossed the threshold. For on every side beneath the lofty roof of that magnanimous king a glory shone as of the sun or moon. There, from the threshold, on each side, were walls of brass that led towards the inner rooms, with blue steel cornices. The doors within the massive building were of gold, and posts of silver on the brazen threshold stood. And silver was the lintel, and above its architrave was gold. And on each side stood gold and silver mastiffs, the rare work of Vulcan's practiced skill, placed there to guard the house of great Alcinous, and endowed with deathless life that knows no touch of age. Along the walls within, on either side, and from the threshold to the inner rooms, were firmly planted thrones, on which were laid delicate mantles woven by the hands of women. The Phaeacian princes here were seated. Here they ate and drank and held perpetual banquet. Slender forms of boys in gold upon the shapely altars stood, with blazing torches in their hands to light at eve the palace guests, while 50 maids waited within the halls, where some in querns ground small the yellow grain, some wove the web or twirled the spindle, sitting with a quick, light motion like the aspen's glancing leaves. The well-wrought tissues glistened as with oil. As far as the Phaeacian race excel in guiding their swift galleys o'er the deep, so far the women in their woven work surpass all others. Pallas gives them skill in handiwork and beautiful design. Without the palace court and near the gate, a spacious garden of 4 acres lay. A hedge enclosed it round, and lofty trees flourished in generous growth within. The pear, and the pomegranate, and the apple tree with its fair fruitage, and the luscious fig, and olive always green. The fruit they bear falls not, nor ever fails in winter time nor summer, but is yielded all the year. The ever-blowing west wind causes some to swell, and some to ripen. Pear succeeds to pear, to apple, apple, grape to grape. Fig ripens after fig. A fruitful field of vines was planted near. In part it lay open and basking in the sun, which dried the soil. And here men gathered in the grapes, and there they trod the winepress. Farther on were grapes unripened yet, which just had cast the flower, and others still, which just began to redden. At the garden's furthest bound were beds of many plants that all the year bore flowers. There gushed 2 fountains, one of them ran wandering through the field, the other flowed beneath the threshold to the palace court, and all the people filled their vessels there. Such were the blessings which the gracious gods bestowed on King Alcinous and his house. Ulysses, the great sufferer, standing there, admired the sight, and when he had beheld the whole in silent wonderment, he crossed the threshold quickly, entering the hall where the Phaeacian peers and princes poured wine from their goblets to the sleepless one, the Argus queller, to whose deity they made the last libations when they thought of slumber. The great sufferer, concealed in a thick mist which Pallas raised and cast around him, hastened through the hall and came close to Arete and Alcinous, the royal pair. Then did Ulysses clasp Arete's knees, when suddenly the cloud raised by the goddess vanished. All within were struck mute as they beheld the man before them. Thus Ulysses prayed, Arete, daughter of the godlike chief Rhexenor, to thy husband I am come, and to thy knees, from many hardships borne, and to these guests, to whom may the good gods grant to live happily, and to hand down each one to his own children in his home the wealth and honors which the people's love bestowed upon him. Grant me, I entreat, an escort, that I may behold again, and soon, my own dear country. I have passed long years in sorrow, far from all I love. He ended, and sat down upon the hearth, among the ashes, near the fire, and all were silent utterly. At length outspake Echeneus, oldest and most eloquent chief of the Phaeacians. Large his knowledge was of things long past. With generous intent, and speaking to the assembly, he began, Alcinous, this is not a seemly sight, a stranger sitting on the hearth among the cinders. All the others here await thy order, and move not. I pray thee, raise the stranger up, and seat him on a throne studded with silver. Be thy heralds called, and bid them mingle wine, which we may pour to Jove, the god of thunders, who attends and honors every suppliant. Let the dame who oversees the palace feast provide our guest a banquet from the stores within. This when the reverend King Alcinous heard, forthwith he took Ulysses by the hand, that man of wise devices, raised him up, and seated him upon a shining throne, from which he bade Laodamas arise, his manly son, whose seat was next to his. Now mingle wine, Protonus, in a vase, for all within the palace, to be poured to Jove, the god of thunders, who attends and honors every suppliant. As he spake, Protonus mingled the delicious wines, and passed from right to left, distributing the cups to all. And when they all had poured apart to Jove, and all had drunk their fill, Alcinous took the word, and thus he said, "Princes and chiefs of the Phaeacians, hear, I speak as my heart bids me. Since the feast is over, take your rest within your homes. Tomorrow shall the senators be called in larger concourse. We will pay our guest due honor in the palace, worshipping the gods with solemn sacrifice. And then will we bethink us how to send him home, that with no hindrance and no hardship borne under our escort, he may come again gladly and quickly to his native land, though far away it lie, and that no wrong or loss may happen to him ere he set foot on its soil. And there must he endure whatever, when his mother brought him forth, fate and the unrelenting sisters spun for the new-born. But should he prove to be one of the immortals who has come from heaven, then have the gods a different design. For hitherto the gods have shown themselves visibly at our solemn hecatombs, and sat with us and feasted like ourselves. And when the traveler meets with them alone, they never hide themselves, for we to them are near of kin, as near as is the race of Cyclops and the savage giant brood." Ulysses the sagacious answered him, "Nay, think not so, Alcinous. I am not in form or aspect as the immortals are, whose habitation is the ample heaven. But I am like whomever thou mayst know, among mankind, inured to suffering. To them shouldst thou compare me. I could tell of bitterer sorrows yet, which I have borne. Such was the pleasure of the gods. But now leave me, whatever have my hardships been, to take the meal before me. Naught exceeds the impatient stomach's importunity, when even the afflicted and the sorrowful are forced to heed its call. So even now, midst all the sorrow that is in my heart, it bids me eat and drink and put aside the thought of my misfortunes till itself be satiate. But, ye princes, with the dawn, provide for me in my calamity the means to reach again my native land. For, after all my hardships, I would die willingly, could I look on my estates, my servants, and my lofty halls once more." He ended. They approved his words, and bade set forward on his homeward way the guest who spake so wisely. When they all had made libations and had drunk, they each withdrew to sleep at home, and left the noble chief Ulysses in the palace, where with him Arete and her godlike husband sat, while from the feast the maidens bore away the chargers. The white-armed Arete then began to speak, for when she cast her eyes on the fair garments which Ulysses wore, she knew the mantle and the tunic well, wrought by herself and her attendant maids, and thus with winged words bespake the chief. "Stranger, I first must ask thee who thou art, and of what race of men? From whom hast thou received those garments? Sure thou dost not say that thou art come from wandering o'er the sea?" Ulysses, the sagacious, answered thus: "'Twere hard, O sovereign lady, to relate in order all my sufferings, for the gods of heaven have made them many. Yet will I tell all thou askest of me, and obey thy bidding. Far within the ocean lies an island named Ogygia, where abides Calypso, artful goddess with bright locks, daughter of Atlas and of dreaded power. No god consorts with her, nor anyone of mortal birth. But me, in my distress, some god conveyed alone to her abode, when, launching his white lightning, Jupiter had cloven in the midst of the Black Sea my galley. There my gallant comrades all perished, but I, in both my arms, held fast the keel of my good ship, and floated on 9 days, till, on the 10th, in the dark night, the gods had brought me to Ogygia's isle, where dwells Calypso of the radiant hair and dreaded might, who kindly welcomed me and cherished me, and would have made my life immortal and beyond the power of age in all the coming time. And there I wore 7 years away, still moistening with my tears the ambrosial raiment which the goddess gave. But when the 8th year had begun its round, she counseled my departure, whether Jove had so required, or she herself had changed her purpose. On a raft, made strong with clamps, she placed me, sent on board an ample store of bread and pleasant wine, and made me put ambrosial garments on, and gave a soft and favorable wind. For 17 days I held my steady course across the deep, and on the 18th day the shadowy heights of your own isle appeared, and then my heart, ill-fated as I was, rejoiced. Yet still was I to struggle with calamities sent by earth-shaking Neptune, who called up the winds against me, and withstood my way, and stirred the boundless ocean to its depths. Nor did the billows suffer me to keep my place, but swept me groaning from the raft, whose planks they scattered. Still I labored through the billowy depth, and swam, till wind and wave drove me against your coast. As there I sought to land, I found the surges hurrying me against huge rocks that lined the frightful shore. But, turning back, I swam again, and reached a river and the landing place I wished. Smooth, without rocks, and sheltered from the wind. I swooned, but soon revived. Ambrosial night came on. I left the Jove-descended stream, and slept among the thickets, drawing round my limbs the withered leaves, while on my lids a deity poured bounteously the balm of slumber. All night long among the leaves I slept, with all that sorrow in my heart, till morn, till noon. Then as the sun went down, the balmy slumber left me, and I saw thy daughter's handmaid sporting on the shore, and her among them, goddess-like. To her I came a suppliant, nor did she receive my suit unkindly, as a maid so young might do, for youth is foolish. She bestowed food and red wine abundantly, and gave, when I had bathed, the garments I have on. Thus is my tale of suffering truly told. And then Alcinous answered him and said, Stranger, one duty hath my child o'erlooked, to bid thee follow hither with her maids, since thou didst sue to her the first of all. Ulysses the sagacious thus replied, Blame not for that, O hero, I entreat, thy faultless daughter. She commanded me to follow with her maids, but I refrained for fear and awe of thee, lest at the sight thou mightest be displeased. For we are prone to dark misgivings, we, the sons of men. Again Alcinous spake, The heart that beats within my bosom is not rashly moved to wrath, and better is the temperate mood. This must I say, O Father Jupiter, and Pallas and Apollo. I could wish that, being as thou art, and of like mind with me thou wouldst receive to be thy bride, my daughter, and be called my son-in-law, and here abide. A palace I would give, and riches shouldst thou willingly remain. Against thy will let no Phaeacian dare to keep thee here. May Father Jove forbid. And that thou mayst be sure of my intent, I name tomorrow for thy voyage home. Sleep in thy bed till then, and they shall row o'er the calm sea thy galley, till thou come to thine own land and home, or wheresoe'er thou wilt, though further off the coast should be than far Euboea, most remote of lands. So do the people of our isle declare, who saw it when they over sea conveyed the fair-haired Rhadamanthus on his way to visit Tityus, son of Earth. They went, accomplishing with little toil their voyage in the compass of a day, and brought the hero to our isle again. Now shalt thou learn, and in thy heart confess, how much our galleys and our youths excel, with bladed oars to stir the whirling brine. So spake the king, and the great sufferer Ulysses heard with gladness, and preferred a prayer, and called on Jupiter, and said, Grant, Father Jove, that all the king has said may be fulfilled. So shall his praise go forth over the foodful earth and never die, and I shall see my native land again. So they conferred. White-armed Arete spake, and bade her maidens in the portico place couches, and upon them lay fair rugs of purple dye, and tapestry on these, and for the outer covering shaggy cloaks. Forth from the hall they issued, torch in hand, and when with speed the ample bed was made, they came and summoned thus the chief to rest. Rise, stranger, go to rest, thy bed is made. Thus spake the maidens, and the thought of sleep was welcome to Ulysses. So that night, on his deep couch, the noble sufferer slumbered beneath the sounding portico. Alcinous laid him down in a recess within his lofty palace, near to whom the queen his consort graced the marriage bed.
You are in the Silver Library. If you enjoyed the experience, like and subscribe for more.